Okay, we're upping the budget this time around. I've recorded this match. This is the StimHack 3 Core tournament, round 3, my match against Barbrarian. We're upping the budget here a little bit, so this week's Potato Cast will be brought to you from the past, where you can record things and then edit them slightly and record more sensible audio and not try to play and commentate at the same time. So we're still a little bit low budge here. We'll get things going in a second, and I'll probably edit this down if I can figure out how to do that properly. In my quest to try all of the core identities in this format, this week I'll be playing with kind of a good stuff criminal Gabe deck, which will be my runner, and I'll be starting with that first. And then also just a mid-range HP Stronger Together deck. So I'm starting off running on the bottom. Opening hand is not terrible, but I don't have any draw in there. And one thing that I've found in this format is that draw is super important, and if you don't, start with it, in this case, Mr. Lee, you can have a bad time. So my mulligan luckily puts me straight into Lee country, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. As I'm looking across the board, I see, he's on Weyland, definitely the richest ID in the revised core set. And the most common ways that I hear people talking about playing this are punitive Counter-Strike kill. So basically you try to get the cleaners scored if possible. Otherwise, you just make a ton of money, get your punitive Counter-Strikes in hand, and then bait them into stealing a three-pointer and go for the flat line. So I sort of feel like starting this match, I'm up against a clock because at some point he's definitely going to outmoney me. And at some point he's going to have one or two punitives in hand and the necessary agendas to actually finish the job off. So that's why I'm taking kind of early pokes at R&D. So looking at my board state, I'm going to be interested in getting together a Breaker Suite because I've had a couple test games with this deck where I end up getting just totally locked out. And I'm going to make things happen. So given the fact that he mulliganed and then iced HQ immediately after drawing a couple of cards, it makes me think that he's probably got some agendas in hand, which is why you saw me hovering over the inside job for a minute there. On the other hand, I don't necessarily want to blow that inside job because I think, again, if he's holding a lot of agendas, he's likely to try to rush one out in the near future. So a couple runs there just to check R&D because it's free and there are 5 3s in this deck. But nothing good. So again, my econ in this deck is I don't have Magnum Opus, and so cards like Armitage Code Busting are important because they give me a chance to make things happen. And I see the first punitive Counter-Strike, so I know I'm already up against the clock. He Heroes Dedicated Response Team, probably hoping that I would hit a snare, which also lets me know that there are snares in this deck. Might have been a little bit premature because I wasn't checking that, just on the suspicion that it might have been a trap. And if he's playing things like Data Raven, which will give me a more or less unavoidable tag if I want to make a successful run, then having that on the board and hidden is a good idea. So I'm going to go ahead and clear it out now because I don't want to get bitten by it later. And then, make some money, get some cards. So the breakers in the core set, especially the fractors, aren't ideal, but after a little bit of messing around, I really do think that Battering Ram is the best choice for fractor. Otherwise, Weyland has a really strong out of just installing a high-strength barrier like Hadrian's Wall, which they can raise easily outside of the range of Morningstar, which is your other primary choice, or even just installing ice walls and spending a couple of turns clicking them up until they're too strong for you to break without a lot of support. So, while Battering Ram is expensive, it gets the job done. And, here I install it immediately because I know that the other one's now been bottomed with Mr. Lee, and I don't want to end up losing this one from my hand due to a snare, which I'm, at this point, very confident he has in his deck. So this runner deck doesn't have a ton of spice in it. I'm not using Data Sucker, and I'm not using Mimic. For my killers, I'm just using Fem and three copies of Fem, 3 copies of Fairy, and I think 1 or 2 Sacrificial Constructs, so I can use Fairies multiple times. For decoders, I just have 1 Gordian Blade, and for fractors, I have 2 battering rams. So I'm still thinking now that he's got 1 punitive in hand, hopefully not 2. He's probably got an agenda in hand, if not more than 1 agenda, and he's trying to do something with this server. So I know that he's going to try to score out something from here pretty quickly. And my choices are basically either let it ride or try to inside job this and get in there underneath of it. With only 10 credits, that's going to be a little bit tricky because my best bet for a guaranteed score is going to be to fem the inside ice and then inside job so that I can get through the outermost ice. I don't think that was feasible to pull it off. My preferred way of installing fem is going to be to trash it and then to run then do a retrieval run on archives to install it for free. So kind of as expected, he scores something out here. The fact that he installed it unadvanced led me to believe that it was probably a 3-pointer, a Project Atlas, or sorry, a 3 advancement cost agenda, either Project Atlas or a false lead. So I'm going to go ahead and bottom the bank job because I don't think that I'm likely to get an open remote, and I'd rather have the quick money of sure gamble. So basically, as I'm looking at like what are my outs for dealing with this when he's probably gonna have a credit lead for the entire game, unless I can just face check things and make him res them or get some forced activation orders out there. My biggest hope is that I'll just be able to make a couple of high impact runs and have a single turn where I score enough points to finish the game. That's kind of a big ask, but we'll give it a shot. So even though he installed into the server, I don't think that I'm going to be able to get in there very easily. Whereas HQ, I think, might still have multiple agendas in it. So I'll go ahead and hit that first. I feel pretty safe given that I've got the full breaker suite up, and so when he raises the archer, I'm pretty happy that I've got this fairy out and can just deal with it. Here, I wasn't trying to be a jerk by clicking break subroutine over and over again. I forgot that it only cost me 0. So anyway, we're in, get my Gabe bucks, 1 punitive, okay, priority requisition. Hope that third one's not a punitive. He actually told me after this game that I think this is the point where he had a second priority rec in hand. So if I had stolen that, then he could have punitive me for the kill. So that was a bullet dodged. The other point of doing that HQ run was that I'm trying to get his credits down a little bit so that I might feasibly be able to outmoney him for brief periods of time. And use the emergency shutdown to close something off. So I'm also happy, even though he only spent 4 credits to res the archer, to be able to de-res it, because that basically just made him lose an agenda point and 4 credits, and that's a pretty good deal. Once again here, I believe that could be an agenda in server 3, but there's not really a lot I can do about it. Pitching the special order because I've got basically all the breakers that I need in hand or close by, and I've already got a special order in hand. So by doing the forged on the archer here, I figure he's probably just going to end up trashing it, which gives me an avenue both for good multi-access on HQ, so I'm going to keep him pressured to move agendas directly into that server as he draws them, And also, I'll have an opportunity for me to collect Gabe bucks by running HQ. It's not ideal because the pop-up window is going to gain him 1 credit each turn that I make each time that I make that run. But you know, you got to war with the army you have. So looking at the board state right now, he's on 4 points. I'm on 3. It means that if he advances something, then I probably have to go be able to contest that. Because if it's a 3-pointer, then I'm pooched. To that end, I'm happy that I see a retrieval run here, because that means I'll be able to have a way to quickly pull out the fem as needed. Also happy to see a little bit of econ. So I'm going to install the Armitage, I hope. No? Okay. What did I do here? Right. Okay. Overdraw, then install the Armitage so that I can get the fem in the bin, and we'll be able to retrieval run it if needed. Yeah. At this point, I think that in this format, it's a pretty big tell when somebody chucks a fem or Morningstar in the bin that they're about to make a retrieval run on it. So I think that I probably slow down for a second here to do some math. If I'm on 9 credits, I need to use 2 of them for an inside job, 3 of them for retrieval run, which leaves me with 4 credits plus a bad pub to get through this server. So I think what I do is I do a retrieval run, and then bust code once or twice, and then make the run with the inside job. So retrieval run for fem, almost clicked on fairy by accident. That would have been hilarious. Set up the inside ice to bypass. And here, I'm not really sure why I didn't click for credits again. Could have been based on the fact that I've seen dedicated response team. He might be on Data Raven, which I need to be able to clear a tag from after the fact. The sort of behavior where you see them rezzing a bunch of ice that you're pretty confident you'll be able to break is normally a tell that, well, it can be a tell that there's actually an agenda in there. So here I'm doing some quick math. I see that I'm on 4 credits, or that he's on 9 credits. I'm on 4 credits. And I'm hoping that I can just close out the game if it turns out that he has multiple punitives in hand. Sort of the gamble is if he's got 2 punitives in hand, then I'm screwed no matter what. But if he doesn't, then I had a chance of finishing the game off right then. So now the question in my mind is, does he have more than 1 punitive in hand? So he draws, and then my heart sinks. You can see me about to start typing over there. Punitive number 1 comes down. Feeling a little concerned. But then when he pays in 7 credits, that leaves me thinking, oh, I'm actually okay. Because if this one lands, which will happen, then I'll have 6 credits to fight the last one, which will come in just at strength 5, because he has exactly the credits necessary to accomplish that. Maybe I've got that backwards. Anyway, point is that he ended up getting some money instead. So that was just a value punitive based on the fact that I'm on game point, and so he won't get to use it any other time. So I'm just going to replenish my hand, get some tools together, and see what we can do. At this point, Maker's Eye is like exactly what I'm looking for, because I don't have a whole lot of R&D pressure here. And I feel like I've already got HQ pretty well on lock with that HQI. So really, like, my game plan at this point is to hit R&D with a Maker's Eye, find out, maybe just rip something outright. Otherwise, just keep him honest by hitting HQ every turn or a couple times each turn. Hitting HQ will also net me 2 credits every turn, so that feels pretty good in terms of keeping up tempo. Now that I see that there's a pop-up window there, I'm feeling all right because I can basically get into R&D and HQ for free, though it is giving him credits. And, no bigs. So here, my plan was basically hit HQ and then hit R&D and, see what happens. Luckily, since this is revised core, there's a bunch of 3-pointers lying around ready to be stolen. So I thought that was a reasonable game. Barbrarian's ice wasn't as taxing as it could have been, wasn't quite as punishing. Especially pop-up window, once you've gotten one hostile takeover scored, is not really that helpful and probably not a great use of influence. There's been talk in the past about like the flow of a game of Netrunner, where in the early game the runner is at a disadvantage because they don't have the tools to get in anywhere, and the corp is ahead. I think that's how it goes. No, so in the early game the corp doesn't have any defenses. Runner can run wherever they want to. Middle game, corp has some ice up, but the runner doesn't have the tools to break it yet. And then in the late game, the runner has all their tools and can go anywhere they want to. And that flow is pretty. I agree with like how that actually works in these core games. And that was an example of it, where once you get to the late game, the runner can kind of control centrals a little bit and can camp remotes. And it's good to have a way to actually get out of that situation as corp. So here I'm playing Stronger Together. I don't love this ID, but I'm committed to trying all of the IDs in the core set. And this deck is also basically just kind of mid-range stuff, taking advantage of the fact that the ice is a little bit more efficient. And you have in-faction access to Donna's Campaign and Roto Turret, which are great cards in this format. So start off with the Naked Pad campaign, feeling all right about it. Not super happy with the ice that I've got in hand. Ichi is good, but it's not really good on its own, especially not in the early game, because the runner has no programs to trash, and it is pretty expensive. The fact that he's got Scrubber makes me sad, because I've got a lot of asset econ, and was kind of hoping that I would be able to put some of it out uniced and have it stick around, and that is not going to happen if he's got a Scrubber out, and has access to that recurring source of credits. So here I'm a little bit bummed because that pad campaign will get trashed on site, and I don't have anything to defend it with. And I've got 2 agendas in hand, and I draw another piece of garbage ice for the moment, and another agenda. So, if you were going to ask me at this point, do you think you're going to win this game? My answer would be an unequivocal no. He's got Mr. Phones up. He's got his extra link. He's got Scrubbers. He's got an economic control over the board that I'm not going to really be able to deal with for the foreseeable future. Basically, at this point, I'm hoping for, a cheeky, double snare kill later on in the game, or for me just to get some ice I can actually rush behind and go for it, and of course, because it's Netrunner, he gets the 3-pointer immediately. So I'm hoping that this single ice will deter him from hitting that pad campaign at least long enough that it starts being profitable. And he can And eventually, like, he'll burn a couple of clicks, getting through that ice or just running it and trashing it. But it doesn't feel like a great strategy. Partially I installed it just because I was flooded and had to get something out of my hand. When the second scrubber goes down, I really start feeling bad about my life choices. So, knowing that, yeah, there we go. So I finally get a piece of ice that can actually theoretically end the run. And, it kind of sucks to create a second remote. But I had to get that pad out there somewhere. I had too many copies of Ichi. And this way I have a chance of keeping that drip going while I actually, rush out a real agenda. So this is a smart run that he makes because he knows if I'm at 12 credits, a lot of my ice is expensive, especially with Reina. And I'm unlikely to res this to defend the pad campaign if that is a real agenda in there. Since he's up 3 points, he can probably, I guess that's 3 advancement agenda and doesn't worry too much about me getting it right now. So that was a good call. Makes his run, trashes that for free with scrubber credits, and I die a little bit inside. On the plus side, going into this, HQI is really common because there's not a lot of good central pressure cards in the core. Sorry, take that back. Indexing is one of the best central pressure cards, and it's in the core. But out of faction, you're more likely to see HQI and makers at 2 influence each, and HQI being kind of recurring. So I'm happy when that goes down because I've got 2 snares in hand, and I think to myself, well, if I can dump a bunch of cards, get HQ to the point where there's, it's mostly snares, then I might be able to get a cheeky win here. So I only advanced, what was that? Of Vitruvius once because I want to have either the option of scoring it the regular way or scoring it and then putting the Project Ares in there. So I cross my fingers and instead he hits the Project Ares and a single snare. It is last click and I've got 6 credits, so that's alright. So I'll go ahead and res the Adonis campaign, even though it loses me a credit net this turn. And hit the hedge fund and then trash some stuff. So this deck ultimately aims to win off the back of a taxing server with Strongbox. So we encourage the runner to actually break Barbrarian and go broke. Leveraging Stronger Together for what it's worth, or click through and then be unable to make the steal because they lack the extra click to steal a strong box, especially, and that's enhanced sometimes with false lead. Unfortunately, to make that happen, I need to get his money down, which is why I trashed his source of drift econ and one of the scrubbers so that I can make him have to pay real credits if he wants to fight me in credit world. So here, I probably should have let that stay out there and just gain credits because I still would have been 1 credit short to res the Heimdall that's over R&D. But it would have been a little bit more threatening and maybe prevented him from making that run. Who knows? It probably wouldn't have helped a lot because I was going to top deck a priority requisition in a second and have to stick it in that scoring remote and see what I could do with it. So yeah, that was tough. I got a little bit flooded. His deck's econ was super strong from right out of the gate with the liberated account and the multiple scrubbers, the mem chip and phones. I'm not sure that he ever got in the black with that one, but that's a great foundation for Reina. So in the end, he ran super smart. He never ended up installing any breakers, but was able to maintain solid pressure against me the entire game. So, if that snare hadn't happened, then I think that I would have been, cooked significantly earlier. Um, but here we are. So yeah, it was tough. Tough, good match. And my opinion of Stronger Together in the core set hasn't really been elevated significantly through this loss. I think it's definitely playable, but for sure, I feel like Weyland is the corp to beat in this format. They just have such a strong economic lead. They have a viable kill plan with punitive, and they have the best ice for the breaker suite that's available, and that they have a couple of in-faction high strength barriers that they can pump up as needed to make servers incredibly taxing. So we just kind of chew the fat for a little while here, and I'll see if I can figure out how to edit the video so that actually cuts off and we don't keep going. So thanks a lot for watching this. It was a really fun game to Barbrarian. Big thanks to John Meunier, Fighting Weyland, for organizing this tournament. And big thanks to the entire Neverwinter community for being full of awesome people that I like to hang out with and play games with. So we'll catch you next week when I play NBN, which I am less confident about than I was with this corp. And probably Chaos Theory, because I would really like to get into the cut if possible. And I think that she is the strongest runner in the core set. And yeah, at this point I've won 4 games and lost 2 games, so I need to get sweep next round to have any shot of getting into the cut, and even then I'm not really feeling great about it. But anyway, we're having a good time playing some cards, running some nets, and we'll catch you later.